Good morning, church. It's Thursday morning, and the week has really gone by quite quick for me. Maybe for you it was a little slow, but regardless of the tempo of our week, I pray that you would take the opportunity and the chance to reflect on how God may have worked in your life or what God may be speaking to you. I pray that you would take that opportunity to ponder and reflect on that. Now with that, let's begin. Now, when I was young, I remember having lots of dreams of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And maybe you have dreams of what you want to be when you grow up, or maybe you've already grown up and you still have dreams of what you want to be. But I can't remember all the different things that I wanted to be. But one thing that I vividly remember is that I wanted to be a firefighter. Now, I used to daydream and I used to imagine myself, saving animals from fires or going into burning buildings and coming out alive with people or climbing up trees and saving cats that get stuck up in the middle of a tree. And I used to think, man, firefighters are so heroic, and I want to be like that too. Now, I actually grew up kind of close to a fire department. My grandparents lived down the street from one, and I used to remember hearing all the sounds of the sirens and being able to go visit it when they had the open house and meeting the firefighters and really just getting a taste and smell of what it was like to be in a fire department. And it was super fascinating, and I was always so amazed. I always looked at what they were wearing, and I wanted to wear the boots, I wanted the helmet, I wanted to wear the vest and the suit, the gear that they all had, and that oxygen tank they would carry on their back. Man, I wanted to wear that too. Now, one thing that I noticed about firefighters is that they're really, really, really big, as in they're very physically fit, and pretty muscular. And I don't really remember seeing firefighters that are not like this, but I don't mean to put them all in a category or whatnot, but typically, in my imagination and as a kid, I always saw them as really muscular, fit, and strong people. Now, when I was younger, this didn't really, wasn't really a factor. I didn't really think of it as much, but as I got older and the opportunity of possibly becoming a firefighter was set on the table, I started to realize that being a firefighter wasn't just about kind of, your mentality of I want to, be a firefighter, but really it required you to be physically capable enough to be a firefighter. Now, to save you time, if any of you are interested in becoming a firefighter, if you want to be one, you have to take a test, and they call it the CPAT, which is short for Candidate Physical Ability Test. So basically in this test, what they do is they have you go through 8 different courses or different events that all have to be completed within a time frame of 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Anything more means you fail, and if you fail any of these 8 different events, you automatically fail the entire test. Now, some of the things you have to do in this CPAT test is you have to do a stair climb, you have to do a hose drag, equipment carry, ladder and raise and extension, forcible entry, search, rescue drag, ceiling breach and pull. Now, not only do you have to finish these in 10 minutes and 20 seconds, you have to do this while wearing a helmet, while wearing gloves, while wearing the equipment, and 50 pounds a 50-pound weighted vest, basically, right? So, and in the first event, they actually make you wear an additional 25 pounds to simulate the act of carrying a hose, right, as you're doing the stair climb. So that means you have to wear 75 pounds of weight on top of all the other equipment, and you have to finish all of this in a span of 10 minutes and 20 seconds. So in other words, basically, if you want to become a firefighter, you have to be physically fit and you have to be physically prepared. Now, in the last chapter of Ephesians, Paul is concluding this letter and his thoughts of the gospel and what that looks like in our lives and how we are supposed to live out this Christian walk. And it's here in Ephesians chapter 6 that we find this really well-known and really well-used analogy about the armor of God. I'm sure you're familiar with it. But let's look at the start of this section. Ephesians 6 verse 10 and 11 says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. You see, in the whole book of Ephesians, remember, Paul is talking about how we are to live a certain way and how we're supposed to live a life in light of the gospel message. And basically, he's concluding that we live this way in response to the gospel because of the fact that there is a battle to fight in our Christian walk. You see, a lot of the times, we like to focus on this whole ideal of the armor of God, right? Because it's easy to remember and it's a really important part. But Paul tells us actually there are two essential things that we have to do, and the armor of God is actually the second part of that. So what's the first part? The first part is in verse 10. It says, "Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might." And then he says to put on the armor of God. Now, super important. Let me explain why. Think about being a firefighter. If you take a weak, scrawny Korean boy like myself and you throw on 50 pounds of weight plus any additional gear that I have to wear, that might not be a very effective firefighter, right? Think about if you take someone that's weak, that is really unable to stand on his own feet, and you put the best and the finest armor on him. Really, the reality is he's an ineffective soldier. He's an ineffective person because the armor is just too much, right? You see, in order to be effective, we have to train. We have to prepare ourselves, and then putting on the armor makes us effective. But what does it mean to be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might? Right? That's kind of weird English, right? What kind of preparation is this, and what kind of preparation does this look like? Notice Paul says that we are to be strong, but key word is to be strong in who? It's strong in the Lord. It's in God. We are to have strength, but strength in who? It's in his might. You see, it's in God's might and strength that we find this preparation, right? It's not me alone. It's not what my work can do by myself. It's about learning to rely and depend on God. And then as God's strength and might plays out in my life, that becomes the source of my everything, right? That's what enables me to be able to put on the armor of God. And that's the first step of preparing for battle. So church, remember this. Before we can effectively put on the armor of God, let's prepare ourselves by relying and depending on God in all things for our strength.